You see, it seems that they have decided to further capitalize on Caitlin Clark's stardom by way of Iowa. And I can tell you,
picking up on it loud and clear, Caitlin Clark's loyal following is boiling over with rage at this very moment. And for once, the controversy has zero connection to anything that unfolded during a basketball game. Indiana's franchise has been packing stadiums to capacity, flying merchandise off shelves at unprecedented rates, and profiting from every ounce of value Clark delivers to professional women's basketball. While her original supporters back in Iowa observe the entire spectacle from hundreds of miles away. Supporters who witnessed her shatter collegiate records, who filled Carver Hawkeye Arena game after game and turned her into a national sensation well before any professional team drafted her, are now scrutinizing how this front office handles business and demanding answers to a question the organization seems desperate to avoid. Is Indiana genuinely constructing a legitimate contender centered on Caitlin Clark? Or are they merely exploiting her identity, her image, her narrative, and her devoted followers to pad their revenue while Iowa receives nothing in return? Based on how everything has unfolded, supporters are reaching a verdict that paints this franchise in an extremely unflattering light. Here is what makes this entire scenario so hard to overlook and so indefensible. Caitlin Clark was not some random discovery. She was forged in Iowa, refined in Iowa, and revered in Iowa for years before the wider sports world finally paid attention. That stake did more than develop a basketball talent. It produced a genuine cultural earthquake that completely reshaped the trajectory of women's basketball nationwide. Her supporter community there is massive, fiercely devoted, and tuned into every single thing she does. So when Indiana shows up in that territory with Clark's face splashed across every advertisement, every uniform, and every marketing rollout while simultaneously making moves that resemble opportunistic money grabs rather than authentic title pursuits, the people who championed her first begin experiencing something deeper than mere letdown. They begin feeling dishonored. They begin feeling taken advantage of. And their silence has officially ended. Here is precisely why her Iowa supporter base has hit a breaking point and why every shred of their outrage carries complete legitimacy. Because this story is not about a single promotional misstep or one isolated branding blunder.
In a fever, Caitlin Clark's kind of non-existent on their Twitter X feed. I don't know what's going on. Conversation I was having with some other people was like, has Caitlin Clark purposely said, promote everybody, let everybody else have some shine, but not so much me? I don't understand. Because now the Fever are doing the same thing that the WNBA did. Remember the rookie in Caitlin Clark's rookie year? The WNBA was like afraid to promote Caitlin Clark because it was like, we don't want to promote her out of fear of making all these other players jealous, right? Remember that? Or the media couldn't comment on nobody unless they threw in Angel Reese. Like Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have led this big growth into the WNBA. And you're like, yeah, but I've seen the attendance and I've seen the ratings, and it looks an awful lot like it's Caitlin Clark, singular.
This represents a trend. A steady, well-documented, irrefutable trend that supporters have been chronicling, exposing, and dissecting across every digital space for months. The evidence keeps stacking up, and Indiana's leadership is fast losing any cover provided by claims of good faith. Ben Daniel dived into the supporter response after this story exploded. And what surfaced was a comment thread that had absolutely reached its limit. Share your reactions below because this next part has people legitimately confused, as it stretches past lineup choices and bench strategies into territory that feels far more intentional. Indiana's digital footprint and promotional output centered on Caitlin Clark have been strikingly weak, and supporters are linking that quietness to a far broader discussion. This mirrors precisely what played out with the league itself throughout Clark's debut campaign, when professional women's basketball appeared oddly hesitant to position her prominently despite every available data point shouting that she was the locomotive pulling the entire surge in popularity. Crowd sizes climbed, viewership climbed, and apparel revenue climbed. Yet there existed this peculiar corporate reluctance to wholeheartedly embrace the single individual driving every bit of it. Now supporters are observing Indiana operate with that identical strange vibe, and the irritation is hitting an entirely fresh peak because this is supposed to be her home team. This should be the singular environment where Caitlin Clark gets championed openly, regularly, and free of any diplomatic dancing that characterized professional women's basketball's clumsy handling of her celebrity right from day one.
The last 10 days, that it's just strange, and some of those are like game highlights. But as far as all these other little activities and this and that and the other, that they're MIA, missing in action. They're promoting tomorrow night's game against the Sparks. We are in LA tomorrow for the first road game of the season. Caitlin Clark and her fans versus the WNBA owners, refs, coaches, players, old guard fans, and the media. Here we go. I mean, what are we doing? Hopefully Stephanie White asks the team what they think the Sparks are going to run. One of the worst looks I've ever seen.
Only one person remains in that position, right? The question lingering in the minds of every supporter at this exact moment is a deeply unsettling one, but it absolutely has to be raised. Why would a team that owes such a massive portion of its present-day visibility and bottom line to a single specific athlete appear to deliberately reduce that athlete's footprint within its own marketing output? Is this an intentional corporate call being executed from the executive offices? Is somebody within those walls actually worried about generating locker room tension by featuring Clark too prominently? Or could this be something even weirder? A scenario where the athlete herself has somehow signaled that she prefers the spotlight spread more equally among her teammates. None of these theories holds up from a sound business standpoint. And every single one of them brings up serious doubts about how this operation is being managed behind closed doors. The truthful explanation is that professional teams do not unintentionally underuse their most bankable property. Such calls are deliberate, vetted by several individuals, and approved at executive tiers. Which means whatever is fueling Indiana's hesitance to completely elevate Caitlin Clark via their own outlets is a deliberate decision, not negligence. That decision is hurting them. It is hurting their audience engagement. It is hurting their cultural traction, and critically, it is solidifying the precise storyline that detractors have been advancing all along, namely that this organization fails to comprehend what it possesses. The supporters who built their devotion around Clark long before Indiana entered the conversation are paying close attention, and they are documenting everything. You cannot reap unlimited rewards from a player's celebrity while at the same time treating that celebrity as something to be controlled and suppressed. That approach does not generate trust, and that approach does not produce something durable around the most thrilling athlete this league has witnessed. And the proof continues accumulating in ways that cannot be brushed aside. When you genuinely investigate Indiana's social media output across a recent window of days, what surfaces is a content approach that seems practically engineered to keep Caitlin Clark off the central focus of anything substantial.
They really need to replace the women in the front office. I mean, I don't care if you win or lose. I just want 30 points and 12 assists from Clark. At this point, F the Fever, F Amber, F Stephanie White, F Kelly, who are all trying to drag down Caitlin Clark's numbers because Kathy instructed them to tamper with Clark. I don't know. This may end up being, guys, we're heading in a direction of what could end up being a 30 for 30 one day on ESPN. What if we told you women's sports had the biggest star of all time? But neither their team nor the league was ready. I think about that for a second. Is that where we're headed? No, sir. After all the bullshit and lying to fans, Indiana Fever, you have the audacity to come out here and put up the big L? Really?
The uploads are scarce. Clark-focused material is almost non-existent, and the limited promotional content that does appear comes off as flat and disconnected from the superstar value this franchise should be maximizing. At the same time, the team is heading into road games, new markets, untapped fan bases, and more opportunities to grow this brand across the country. And the front office is entering that stretch with the marketing energy of an organization that does not fully grasp the moment. On top of all of that, there is a parallel conversation developing around the bench leadership that has supporters seriously questioning whether the people managing this team during games are even prepared for what they are facing every night. There are so few Caitlin Clark posts. What professional coach at any level operates like this? So what everyone following this situation is now asking is how a major pro sports franchise, sitting in the middle of its biggest cultural breakthrough ever, can look this inconsistent in handling the one thing it should be executing flawlessly. How does a team featuring the most followed, most talked about, and most marketable athlete in the entire sport produce so little focused content around her? How does a coaching staff prepare for games without doing the basic level of scouting that any fan with a phone could complete in minutes? Are these isolated mistakes, or do they signal a deeper structural issue that no one inside the organization is willing to address publicly? The hard truth is that neither of these things happens by accident. A content strategy does not accidentally bury its biggest asset, and a team does not accidentally show up unprepared without a wider system failure allowing both issues to exist at the same time. What supporters are seeing right now is a franchise benefiting massively from Caitlin Clark's presence while simultaneously failing to match her standard of preparation, professionalism, and performance across almost every area around her. She shows up and does her job at an elite level every single night. The question the fan base is now demanding an answer to is why the organization built around her refuses to do the same. This is where frustration turns into something much deeper than disappointment and becomes something far more emotional and personal. What you are hearing from a growing section of the Caitlin Clark fanbase is not just anger over losses or disagreement with rotations. It is a complete detachment of loyalty from Indiana as a brand. Fans who came into this league solely because of Caitlin Clark are now openly saying their loyalty belongs to the player, not the team. They want to watch her play. They want to follow her numbers. They want to see her succeed. And they have fully disconnected from any emotional investment in whether this particular franchise wins or loses around her. That is an extraordinary place for a fan base to reach. And the fact that so many people are arriving there at the same time says everything that needs to be said about how deeply trust has broken down between this organization and the audience it depends on. Beneath all that anger sits a more uncomfortable idea that some fans are beginning to say out loud, that we might be witnessing a turning point future generations will look back on with disbelief. So the question that should be sitting heavily in the minds of every serious observer right now is this: what does this mean for the future of women's basketball? If the most transformative athlete the sport has ever produced finds herself inside an organizational structure that is not built to elevate her, protect her, or even fully appreciate what she represents, what happens to this surge, this rise in viewership, this wave of new fans if the team around the player driving it all continues to fall short, underdeliver, and miss on basic expectations? And most directly, where is the defensive identity and strategic clarity that this coaching staff promised when they took over this roster? The conclusion many supporters are reaching is one that should concern every executive in that building. When a fan base starts cheering individual stats over team wins, the organization has already lost something it may never fully get back. That shift in loyalty is not temporary, and it is not something a single good win can reverse. It reflects a breakdown in the unspoken agreement between a team and its supporters. Indiana made commitments, both explicit and implied, about what this era would be. They promised growth, accountability, smart roster construction, and coaching that matches the talent on the floor. So far, the results have not matched the message, and the fan base that filled arenas in record numbers because of one player is now openly questioning whether this organization even belongs in the same conversation as her impact. Indiana are sitting on the most valuable property in women's basketball right now, and the window on how long they can afford to handle it poorly is shrinking. Caitlin Clark did not build this fan base by accident, and she certainly did not build it so an organization could quietly cash in while failing to match her intensity, preparation, and excellence. Iowa shaped her. The fans built this moment. And if Indiana's leadership does not wake up and start treating this era with the seriousness it demands, history will not be kind to the people who had everything and still managed to waste it. Be sure to tap the subscribe button and hit the bell so you never miss an update.